Hello, welcome to another Radio Roll video. Today we're going to be, once again, this year, doing something a little bit different and checking out a Kickstarter. This time, well, I say this time, this is the first time we're doing it. So this one is Maladum, Dungeons of Enveron, or Enveron. That sounds very close to something else. So I might mispronounce that a few times. So please don't come for my shins, Wizards of the Coast, or Battle Systems. Though Battle Systems are lovely. From everything I've seen and heard of them, they're lovely. So hopefully they won't come for my shins. But yeah, so if you're not aware of Battle Systems as a company, they make they're sort of best known for their terrain. They make really quite nice cardboard terrain, and if you're not aware of their stuff, you might think cardboard terrain that sounds naff, but it really isn't. It's really quite durable, quite it'll stand up to a good amount of you know messing around. Like I wouldn't want to drop it or throw it around. It's not going to hold up to the sort of same level of a beating that Games Workshop terrain would. But the thing is with Battle Systems terrain is that once you're done with it, you can just pack it away. Like it'll come in individual parts with these tiny little clips. Unfortunately, I don't have any to hand, but it's all very modular, so you can mix bits around. You can look at what you get in the box, look at what the board game will tell you to put together, and just go. Now I'm just gonna put something together myself. So yeah, Battle Systems have a quite nice line of make some more room. Battle Systems have a really nice line of terrain already across a couple different genres. So they're sort of best known at this point, I think, for their sci-fi terrain and their core space game, which this seems to be very much influenced and inspired by in terms of the mechanics of the game. So I imagine it'll be very similar in that sense. But they also have their own fantasy line already. A range of buildings, a lot of stuff that you can use for D&D or your larger skirmish games, or even they do a set that I think that will make a good 6x4 board, if I remember correctly. So they already have their fingers in a lot of pies terrain-wise, and they also have, a good amount of experience at this point making minis. So yeah, let's continue on down. So as it says, it's quite a nice little bit of fluff, about how magic's sort of returning to the world and adventurers are going out to make a name for themselves, as is often the case. Yeah. So, Maladum is a fantasy miniatures board game in which your band of adventurers head into ancient dungeons and abandoned settlements to seek their fortune. So yeah, that's very much the core space style of game, where create a crew, go into different environments, and loot. Maybe do a couple missions if you're interested in that sort of thing, and try not to die. Yeah, got a nice testimonial from Andy Burdis from Blackjack Legacy. Great YouTube channel, actually. Really big fan of that stuff. So yeah, this has been in the works for a while at this point, I think. It's been one of those things that they've wanted to do a fantasy because a lot of people have asked for it. You know, obviously I'm more of a sci-fi fan, so I love the whole core space stuff. Big Stargrave fan, so fantasy is sort of secondary to me. I still love fantasy, but obviously there are people who are on the opposite side of that fence who might like sci-fi but also prefer fantasy, and this is I think for them. You know, for the people that are like, hey, can we have a bit of sword and sorcery stuff? And battle systems have obliged, which is cool. Yeah, as it says, the game takes place in a highly detailed 3D board included in the box. So that's also a cool thing for this. It'll be in quite a massive box actually. You'll get all your terrain. Possibly, I imagine about 8 minis ish for the heroes, and then some enemies, and a rulebook, and a couple extra bits which we'll see as we scroll down. So you can use it as its own board game, which for me I feel is a great sort of intro to skirmish games, because it's somewhere between the very I guess handholdy style of Zombicide, where your movement is fairly restricted. You can only move in certain, large blocks, and your combat and your shooting is going to be roughly the same as your movement in these large blocks. Whereas Core Space sort of starts to introduce bits that you might expect in a standard tabletop war game, or more to this scale skirmish game. So you'll possibly be using more measuring gauges. You'll be using movement specific specific movement values, instead of just going, okay, I'm going to move over to this square. As you can see here, the playmat is squared, so you could use this. You could move in squares, and you could even use this for D&D, which I think is a great advantage, especially for something like this that is fantasy set. This would make a great box of just D&D stuff. Like, you could easily have this is clearly designed to be a dungeon in a box. So, you could easily go, okay, let's get this box. It'll come with minis for your heroes, some monsters and enemies to beat up, and obviously your terrain. As it says, it's based on the Core Space system, but it's been reworked from the ground up to provide a compelling narrative experience. So a lot of, if you've ever played Core Space, there'll be a lot of common ground, a lot of things that you might recognize. So as you can see, you already have a rules download. So as it says, it is still being fine-tuned, but if you wanted to have a crack at it, you could, which I really like. I really like that, you can click download on this, have a read through the rules, and if you've already got some fantasy terrain and some fantasy minis, you can have a play around with them, and possibly even make suggestions of your own. Actually get involved in the community, speak to the people that are going to be helping to make this, and go, okay, here's what I've found, here's some things that maybe could be balanced, or, you know, I think that's cool that they've gone, here's the rules. They're not final, but if you find something that's like glaring or something that you like, even, hey, put your hand up and go, this thing's cool, or this thing needs adjusting, which I like. More testimonials, and here's the box and all its glory. So yeah, a lot of this is very similar to the core space stuff. So as you can see, you get a bunch of minis. They are PVC, and they are more on the board game quality side of things, but they are still quite nice. Like I think PVC minis have come a long way since the early days. Like I remember the first edition Zombicide minis. They were fine, but they were, a lot of the detail on the more involved minis was quite soft. And then, going as time has gone on, tooling for these things has improved, and the core space minis, the original core space minis were great. And then I haven't seen, in person at least, I haven't seen the core space firstborn minis, but they look really crisp, and I'm quite excited to see what they are like myself. So yeah, minis are good. Obviously, you get your playmat. It'll be a nice. I imagine they'll be keeping to the 2x2, 2 foot by 2 foot square. Again, if you get multiple mats, you can obviously put them together, make a 2x4 or 4x4 board if you wanted to. I could imagine you could even make an L-shaped board if you wanted to, and just have this really expansive dungeon, which again I really like. So you can buy this box for the gameplay, or you can buy it and just ignore all of this stuff and all of this stuff and just play it and just use it for your fantasy games. Like this would be quite cool for Forbidden Psalm and Frostgrave and Rangers of Shadowdeep even. So yeah, when you buy games like this that have terrain and have minis, you are basically investing in the tabletop hobby as a whole, because like I say, you can use it for almost anything in that genre. And then there's a bit on the terrain, because this is sort of a double Kickstarter. They are getting backers for the game, and then there's also just this terrain, which again, it is all made of cardboard, but it's really nice. I think you could easily just spend hours messing around with this stuff. And to be fair, you'd probably spend a couple hours setting it up. Because like I say, it's something that is designed to be tore down and packed away into a small area. So, especially a big setup like this, would take about probably, I imagine, at least an hour for this sort of big setup. Yep, there we are. Suitable for D&D and all other 28 to 35mm fantasy games and RPGs. So, yeah. And no painting required, which is great, because who wants to be painting terrain when you could be painting your minis? They're the fun bits. So I think that's another aspect that it cuts out of the hobby, where it's like, hey, we've just got this terrain that's already really vibrantly coloured. already got a lot of different things, like you can see down here you've got fire pits, things like that, lots of hazards. And for me, this sort of 2D design really, for me, harkens back to like early Diablo and early isometric RPGs, where a lot of the walls and the buildings were fairly flat and 2D anyway. So maybe I don't know if that's. I'm assuming that's not just me, because 8 billion people on the planet. I'm not going to be the only person with that individual thought. But yeah, it does give me that sort of Diablo-y vibe. It's a build-up of a table, which, as you can see, you do get a good amount of space. And then you can just build it up as much or as little as you want. I imagine this would... I think this is slightly too small for a Warcry game, but, yeah. Here's a video on their YouTube channel, which is cool. And here's the fun bit, the rewards. Kickstarter edition. 30 to 120 minutes. I would double that, at least, I think. Especially for your first time. Whenever I see a game that goes, hey, you can play in this amount of time, double it, at least. Especially for your first sort of game or two, when you're learning the rules, you're going to be stopping and starting a lot. I think that's quite optimistic. Solo and co-op, and that is something that the battle systems games are really, really good at. Their solo and co-op stuff is actually a lot of fun. So, yep, that's always good. Branching narrative campaign, yeah, always fun. And 3D terrain included, yes. So again, this is basically what we saw before. For 99 quid, which is fucking good. Like, you think this much from Games Workshop? Yes, their terrain is plastic, but 99 quid for, all of this, basically. I am a big fan. I'm a big fan of that rock troll. I want one. So yeah, all of this, a good handful of minis. 100 terrain pieces, game components. All of this for 100 quid. Plus, if you're going via Kickstarter, you get stretch goals. Yeah, for 100 quid, that's ridiculous. You're getting a lot of good stuff. And then they do a separate pledge for just dungeon terrain. So if all you want is terrain for your D&D games, for your various skirmish games, then you can get that for less than 80 quid, which is, again, pretty mental. You get a lot of stuff, different things, staircases, sort of large open areas, some dungeon furniture, and you get, yeah, there we go, 2 foot by 2 foot or 60 centimeter neoprene gaming mat, which they are really nice quality, actually. And then 140 plastic clips. And if you find that 140 isn't enough for what you want to do, they do sell these separately for a few quid. And then bonus content for this as well. Yeah. A lot of really, really nice stuff. And then there's the 175 quid for the combined pledge, which... So, yeah. That's a big, big, big game of whatever you wanted there. Like, that, to me, is just... Again, that would take a good... I mean, this, the base game would probably take a good 25, 30 minutes to set up, possibly. At least for the first time. As you get more used to what bits go where and how the system works, you can definitely get it down to 10-15 minutes. But even on top of this, you're looking at possibly up to an hour setup. So it's very much a hey, let's do this type game. Very much like other dungeon crawls like Frostgrave, Frosthaven, and stuff like that. Yeah. Again, they're on Board Game Geek. If you're not on Board Game Geek, just get on that. If you're a tabletop games fan, it's really good. And here's a lot of testimonials from people who have played the game and a lot of videos. And socials, lots and lots of socials and add-ons, which the add-ons are cool. So basically, board game terrain on its own without the minis, accessories. You can buy the mat on its own, which I do like. So if you just want a neoprene mat for your D&D, or you just need a neoprene mat for your games, then you can do that too. Yeah. And there's retail stuff. No, finally shipping. Which, yeah, not bad. So yeah, that has been the game. Which, if I had the money, I'd be going all in on this because it looks so cool, and I love, like I say, I already love battle systems and their whole vibe anyway. But yeah, I will leave a link in the description for Maladum Dungeons of Enveron. Christ, guys, please. You had to have known what you were doing there. But yeah, as you can see, it's already funded, so it's almost definitely going to retail, as the others have. And at the time of recording, you have 19 days, so I don't know exactly when I'm going to be putting this up, but it'll definitely be, in the next couple days. So you should have about 2 weeks to get on this if you want to. So yeah, as ever, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your hobby, whatever that may be, whether it's painting, assembling minis. I know what I've got to do. Well, okay. What I've got to do with the rest of my day is get onto a virgin's ass about sorting out our Wi-Fi. But beyond that, I'm going to be assembling these lads and then making a video for this because, yeah. So yeah, enjoy whatever hobby it is that you're doing, and yeah, take care of yourself.